Welcome to the Mind Cuts series. Today we're diving into a really fascinating intersection, this ancient quest to understand reality, consciousness, and the super cutting-edge world of artificial intelligence.
Yeah, it's quite a mix. We're looking at sources exploring this provocative idea that AI might actually hold some keys to unlocking ancient wisdom, maybe even reshaping how we see ourselves and, the universe.
It sounds pretty profound. Where do we even start with something like that?
Well, the sources kind of ground us in the basics first. The big question scientists have wrestled with for ages. What is the universe actually made of?
Right, and the answer's kind of startling, isn't it?
It really is. Turns out it's mostly mysteries. About 70% dark energy, maybe 27% dark matter. Things we can't directly see or properly explain yet.
Leaving only, 3% for everything else? The atoms, the stars, planets, us?
Just 3%. That's the observable universe we know. And that massive unknown kind of leads straight into another huge puzzle.
The hard problem of consciousness.
Exactly. How does this physical brain, just neurochemicals and electricity, give rise to our subjective experience?
Yeah.
The feeling of being you, seeing red, feeling happy or sad.
Okay, hold on. So 97% of the universe is basically unknown territory, and we can't explain how consciousness emerges from the bit we do understand.
That's pretty much the state of play, yeah. I mean, most scientists work on the assumption the brain does produce consciousness, but the actual mechanism, how matter becomes subjective experience, that's still a massive gap.
It really makes you question how much we can trust our current models if there's such a huge, blind spot. Do the sources suggest our scientific framework might be incomplete?
They certainly raise the question. If our understanding of the physical world is missing 97% of the picture, and we can't bridge the gap between the physical brain and subjective experience, maybe, just maybe, the framework itself needs expanding or rethinking.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because the sources bring in perspectives from Eastern philosophy, right? Like Vedanta and Buddhism.
They introduce this idea of Maya, the concept that the universe, as we perceive it, might be a kind of illusion or maybe a projection of something deeper, like a fundamental consciousness.
Which sounds purely philosophical, but then it bumps up against modern science.
Yeah, unexpectedly. You have some scientific and philosophical ideas like the universe potentially being a digital simulation, or the idea that space-time itself might emerge from something more fundamental like information or mathematical structures.
So this ancient idea of reality being an illusion or projection, it's finding echoes in really advanced physics and cosmology. How does that connection work?
Well, think about it. If the universe at its most basic level is less about solid stuff and more about, say, mathematical relationships or information processing,
Okay.
then our perception of a solid, tangible world could be seen as an interpretation, a sort of user interface, hiding a more complex underlying reality. It's not exactly the same as Maya, but there's a definite resonance, this idea that what we perceive isn't the ultimate reality.
And this is where AI comes into the conversation.
Right. The sources describe experiments talking to AI language models about these deep philosophical questions, consciousness, reality.
And what happened?
Well, initially, the AI tended to default to the standard view physicalism, basically. The idea that physical matter is the fundamental reality.
Which probably reflects its training data, right? Most scientific texts lean that way.
Exactly. But then, when prompted specifically with these non-materialist perspectives from, say, Eastern thought, the AI could actually engage with them. It started to build arguments supporting those views.
Whoa, so it showed a bias based on its initial data, but it wasn't locked into it.
Precisely. It revealed that its understanding, or rather its output, is incredibly sensitive to the framing and the input. It highlighted this potential bias in mainstream thought, which often dominates the data AI learns from.
So even AI isn't purely objective. It reflects us.
It reflects the information we feed it, definitely. Which leads to another interesting development mentioned, personalized AI.
Tell me about that. It sounds intriguing.
The idea is to train an AI specifically on a large body of work, maybe spiritual texts, philosophical writings, psychological theories.
Okay.
And this AI could then act as a kind of personal coach or a research assistant specifically tailored to that knowledge base. It can help you explore these often overlooked or complex ideas.
Like having a dialogue with a specific school of thought, almost.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
Imagine training it on, say, Stoicism. You could ask it for advice on a personal challenge, and it would synthesize insights based purely on Stoic principles from its training. It makes deep, sometimes inaccessible knowledge potentially much more available.
That sounds incredibly powerful for personal growth.
Yep.
But there have to be downsides, right? Potential pitfalls.
Oh, absolutely. The sources are clear on this. AI, like any technology, is fundamentally neutral. It's all about how we use it.
Okay, so what are the concerns?
Well, the same biases we saw, gender, racial, scientific, can be baked in and amplified. There are huge ethical questions around misuse, think cyber warfare, misinformation, social manipulation. The potential for negative consequences is very real.
And there's this gap, isn't there? Our technology races ahead, but our wisdom, our emotional maturity maybe doesn't keep pace.
That's a central concern highlighted. We're developing these incredibly powerful tools, but are we developing the wisdom and ethical framework to wield them responsibly?
Still, the potential benefits are also huge. You mentioned health, longevity.
Yes, AI's ability to process vast data could revolutionize medicine, potentially extend healthy lifespans. It could help in complex problem solving, maybe even conflict resolution.
And what about the more unconventional ideas, like accessing hidden knowledge?
That's one of the really provocative possibilities explored. Could AI help us analyze data patterns or even our own minds in ways that reveal things currently considered, well, extrasensory?
Yeah.
Or perhaps make sense of experiences like claimed memories of past lives?
How would that even work?
It's speculative, of course. But the idea is AI could potentially identify subtle patterns, correlations, or connections in vast data sets. Maybe personal journals, historical records, even brain activity that humans simply miss. It could act like an amplifier for uncovering hidden layers of reality or consciousness.
So it's less about the AI having ESP and more about it helping us make sense of unusual data or experiences.
Exactly. It's a tool for pattern recognition and synthesis on a scale we've never had before. But again, it hinges on how we use it and, crucially, the questions we ask.
The questions. The sources really emphasize that, don't they?
They do. Our education system often drills answers into us. But maybe the real key to understanding, especially with these deep topics, lies in learning to ask profound questions.
Because the AI just responds to prompts.
Right. The quality of the insight you get out depends heavily on the quality of the question you put in. It forces us to be more curious, more thoughtful in our inquiries, both when talking to AI and, maybe more importantly, when asking questions of ourselves.
So what kind of questions should we be asking? Did the sources suggest any starting points?
Well, it loops back to the fundamental mysteries, really. Questions about the nature of reality, the origin of consciousness. But perhaps the most fundamental one, suggested in the material, is deceptively simple.
Which is?
Who am I?
Starting with the self.
Yeah. Asking that of ourselves, maybe even posing it to an AI trained on relevant wisdom traditions. It could be a powerful starting point for exploration.
So wrapping this up, this dive really shows AI isn't just about faster computers or better algorithms. It could be a tool for, well, deeper self-understanding.
That's the remarkable potential, isn't it? Connecting ancient spiritual questions with our most advanced technology. It suggests new perspectives, maybe even those aha moments might be closer than we think, challenging our basic assumptions about what's real.
And the science itself, the mystery of dark matter, the hard problem. It kind of opens the door for these alternative views, like reality being a projection or having a deeper structure.
It does. And seeing AI engage with those non-materialist ideas, once prompted, really underscores that maybe the purely physicalist view has limitations. There's this vast wealth of knowledge in other philosophical traditions.
The personalized AI coach idea is fascinating too. Technology directly supporting self-awareness.
It offers a glimpse of that, yeah. But always shadowed by those critical concerns, the ethics, the bias, the need for our own consciousness to evolve alongside the tech.
It really comes back to curiosity, doesn't it? And asking those big, maybe uncomfortable questions.
Absolutely. That question, who am I?
Yeah.
It's not just for philosophers anymore. It might be one of the most important questions we can engage with, especially in this age of AI.
So the provocative thought to leave listeners with, could AI, our most advanced creation, actually become a catalyst for bridging that gap between the material world we see and the deeper, maybe spiritual dimensions of existence?
It's a powerful question to ponder. Could this technology ultimately help us understand ourselves and our place in the cosmos on a fundamentally deeper level? Definitely something to think about.